The 2023 Nigerian election is one that is attracting international interest the most since the return to democracy. About 4 former African presidents are currently in the country to monitor and observe this process, including the Commonwealth Secretary General. I interviewed the United States Ambassador, Mary Beth Leonard, to talk to us about the level of interest and why the interest is geared at a time like this. I'll start with the regiment. We know US has been a partner with Nigeria, and the interest in ensuring democracy strives in Nigeria has also been there. There's been a lot of work from the United States. How would you assess Nigeria 24 years after return to democracy? What would you say?
Well, I think that Nigeria is in a really good place. I think there's been remarkable progress over those 23 years. Nigeria has really hit some important milestones, particularly in the idea of, the peaceful transfer of power. And I really think that as we go into these elections, that Nigerians should feel proud. Because, if you look across West Africa and you see coups and third terms, and in this country that peaceful alternance of power is just a widely accepted norm. And so I think that's something for Nigerians really to be proud of in this day and age. So, the elections are an opportunity to further solidify Nigeria's democracy. And, the fact that Nigeria has done so well is a real big part of the reason why President Biden met with President Buhari, along with some other leaders that were having elections at the African Leaders Summit. And they talked a lot about how worldwide to revitalize and solidify democracy. So as we go into this, the United States has great confidence in INEC. At the invitation of the government of Nigeria, we've worked both with INEC and with civil society to help the further reinforcement of those systems, to continue that positive trajectory in Nigeria's democratic systems. And we're just really looking forward to having this election proceed in a peaceful, transparent, and credible way. Just want to emphasize again, the United States doesn't favor a candidate in this process. We favor the process of this process.
That's interesting. Good to know. But then, let me also ask, the interest this year, this election, seems to be different or more critical than how it has been over the years. Though we know US has always been interested in democratic process in Nigeria, but then this year, we have a lot of former presidents in the country to observe. Why do you think there's so much international interest?
Well, first of all, I think that the international community recognizes what Nigeria knows. Nigeria matters. This election in this huge country with the largest population, the biggest economy, Nigeria matters. I hope that your viewers have seen the video that our Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, and Linda Thomas-Greenfield at the United Nations, and Samantha Power at USAID did the other day. Free and fair elections in Nigeria make the world freer and fairer. And so it's really important. And while I don't get to speak for the entire international community, I can tell you as the United States, we are very invested in Nigeria's success. That takes the form of a really broad engagement from the economy to health to security. And as we get to the other side of this election, we'll have the opportunity to take stock of our engagement together and with a new administration and think about what's working well and what we can do better on. I think that we'll continue those broad programs to help Nigeria secure in its security needs, in its how trade and investment can help support job creation and prosperity. So no matter the outcome of this election, I think it's pretty certain that the relationship between Nigeria and the United States will remain strong.
Okay, I also know that there's been a message from the Secretary Anthony Blinken on this election, Nigeria's election. But then we know right now there are some upheavals in the country, cash crunch, fuel situation. Are you worried, or is the United States worried that this could have an impact on the election whatsoever?
Well, what I would like to say to all Nigerians is that it is up to everyone in this country, whether they be politicians or religious figures, traditional figures, leaders, ordinary citizens, candidates, campaign. Everybody has a role in ensuring that people approach these elections in a spirit of peacefulness and eschew violence and inflammatory rhetoric. Candidates are supposed to argue with each other about issues. Individual citizens can have grievances about things, but it's so important that everyone commit to addressing those peacefully, and that with specific reference to the election, that legal procedures, legal process, be the recourse for any challenges that may arise. So I think that we all have a role, all Nigerians have a role in making sure that this proceeds peacefully.
Okay, so that is thrown back to Nigerians. Okay, let me take you up on one of the policies the United States announced just before the election, during the election campaigns. That is on the visa ban for whoever is involved in violence. Right. This was also done in 2019. Did we see any ban in 2019?
Yes. Although because our visa records are confidential, we don't say who the objects of these are, but I can tell you that I'm personally aware of people whose travel to the United States has been blocked by this measure. And basically, the visa sanction is for anybody who seeks to undermine Nigeria's democratic process, be that by intimidation of voters or the media, or through electoral violence, violating people's human rights, seeking to interfere with the judiciary's independence. It's our contribution to reminding people that there is an interest in this process going forward peacefully and in accordance with the regulations, and we will not hesitate to again use the visa sanction should we identify people who transgress those norms in the current election.
Okay, but so far, this is just a follow-up to what you said. So far, has there been any, a lot of people have said that the campaigns were reasonable and okay, violence-free. From the US perspective, do you think the campaigns have also been?
You know, I see a lot of dissatisfaction expressed with rhetoric, and you know the fact that you know the tranquility of campaigns to go about their work, and so I think it's something that we all need to pay attention to, and remember our contribution towards helping to ensure that it remains peaceful.
Okay, my final question on 2023 election. There's a Nigerian, from the Electoral Act that says if there's a need for a rerun, it has to happen within 21 days. Do you have any take on that? Oh.
So I think actually in this way, the United States and Nigeria have a little something in common. We have something called the Electoral College, which Americans always forget what it's for until the new election comes, and then you have to remember how it works again. And in our case, the Electoral College is a mechanism to make sure that the interests of large states and small states are balanced out. And of course, here in Nigeria, you have both in terms of who wins the election and how participants in a runoff are identified, a concern to balance geographically electoral results. So this business of not only do you have to win the vote, but you also have to get 25% of the vote in 2/3 of the states. So I think it's useful to remind ourselves of the quirks of our constitutions that make elections more complicated than we think. And hopefully everybody is gotten onto that as we do every 4 years, trying to remember how the Electoral College works.
I know the focus today is on 2023 election, but let me just ask you about Russia-Ukraine, right, because today makes it a year the invasion happened. Right. And we've seen that the US has identified with Ukraine throughout this whole invasion. Do you nurse any fear that the invasion could go beyond this, or it could escalate?
So yes, first of all, you're absolutely right. We are a year on from Russia's brutal invasion of Ukraine. And I have to say that I really must commend Nigeria, who yesterday at the United Nations voted along with 140 other countries to condemn the continuing war. And it was really the right way to vote, right? Because it was a resolution that wanted to convey the international community's commitment to the sovereignty, independence, unity, and territorial integrity of Ukraine. You know, and this is Ukraine. The war is not only a matter for Europe. I mean, we all know that there have been devastating impacts worldwide in terms of food prices and fuel prices. So this is something that affects us all. The United States has been very conscious of that. In fact, even as we have supported Ukraine materially, we have devoted more than $5 billion to issues of food security and provision of assistance worldwide. And a bunch of that has come to Nigeria too, both in terms of nutrition support for people and also investing in getting the private sector more invested in agriculture to diversify production and make Nigeria less dependent on imports. So there are many, many reasons why there needs to be a negotiated settlement to this. But again, congratulations to Nigeria for their vote in yesterday's UN resolution.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And finally, let me just give you this opportunity. Nigerians right now, everybody is on the edge what tomorrow brings, the election, the voting process brings. What's your word? What's your message personally and then from the US government?
So, well, when you're the ambassador, those messages tend to overlap a little bit, don't they? But my message is to get out there and vote. You know, this is your opportunity to have your voice be heard and choose the candidate that you think will best serve your needs. And I think that it's important to remember, too, that a citizen's obligation in democracy is not just the act of voting, but that afterwards, think about why it is that you selected that person when you voted for them. What did you want from them? And then go and remind them of that. And hold them accountable for what citizens want. So we wish Nigeria really a peaceful, transparent, and credible election tomorrow.
There you have it. Nigeria is very important to the world. The United States ambassador also insists her country will always remain a partner in progress to Nigeria. It is therefore our collective responsibility as Nigerian citizens to ensure this election is credible, fair, and violence-free. Moyo Thomas. Thank you for watching.